Balan Wonderworld is one of those games that was so bad that it will go down in the gaming history books. People have been fascinated with how such an awful product could be put out by a big publisher, Square Enix, and also for a full $60. Don't forget they charge the same amount for this as a standard AAA level game. And today, that story got a bit more interesting. The game's director, Yuji Naka, whose name kind of helped sell this new IP, he was the creator, the lead programmer on a small title you may have heard of called Sonic the Hedgehog, as well as the development lead on a title that is close to my nostalgic heart, Knight's Journey into Dreams, which at face value seemed like it was going to be the main inspiration for this game with the overall design, the vibe, feeling very Knights-esque. Not to mention the marquee character looked a lot like Knights. That was very much not the case in the end, and obviously as the director, he gets a lot of blame for how bad this game turned out. But he apparently was removed from the project 6 months prior to release, and according to him, that was partially due to his concerns over, you guessed it, the poor quality of the game, and he has been embroiled in a lawsuit with Square Enix that has required him to not speak out about the whole ordeal until now. And earlier today, he put out a long tweet thread giving his side of things, which I'm going to read the entirety of, so settle in, because it's a long one. This translation was done by Cheesemeister on Twitter. It starts, I was removed as the director of Balan Wonderworld about half a year before release, so I filed lawsuit against Square Enix. Now that the proceedings are over and I'm no longer bound by company rules, I'd like to speak out. I think it's wrong of Square Enix not to value games and game fans. According to court documents, I was removed as the director of Balan Wonderworld for 2 reasons. It was done by the producer, head of marketing, head of sound, managing director, and HR. First, when a YouTuber's arranged piano performance of the game music was released in a promotion instead of the original game track, turning the composer into a ghostwriter, I insisted the original track to be released, and this caused trouble. I don't know how that happens. According to court documents, Naoto Oshima told producer Noriyoshi Fujimoto that the relationship with Arzest is the studio that co-developed the game. Also, Oshima was the character designer for Sonic. His name was kind of being used to sell this game as well, but that relationship was ruined due to comments I made wanting to improve the game in the face of Arzest submitting the game without fixing bugs. Also, in an email from Oshima to Fujimoto, he wrote, I just told the staff about the demo delay when I told them this was producer Fujimoto's decision. Let's do our best for him. The staff applauded and cheered. This was unexpected and I was moved. The staff's been down lately, but their spirits have been revived. Thank you very much. All of us on the staff will work hard. So the schedule wasn't up to me, but the producer, yet the schedule being tight was the producer's doing. Something was off. We were releasing an original game, but only putting out an arranged track was definitely wrong. I believe that the game music that everyone can hum out are the original tracks. I believe that every effort must be put in to make games the best they can be until the very end so game fans will enjoy what they buy. It wasn't right to, without discussion, remove and completely disassociate from the project a director saying so. Retweeting, liking, etc. on SNS and such was banned, so I don't think Square Enix values game fans. There were many comments and wonderful illustrations about Balan Wonderworld, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't react to them. Myself, I'm truly sorry to the customers who bought Balan Wonderworld in an unfinished state. From this point onward, I will be able to react to posts tagging me or directed only toward me on SNS and such. I believe that when making games, asking for fixes in order to make something good should be a given, and if that's not possible, it should be talked over. But it looks like they can't. I don't think they value games. For Sonic the Hedgehog, 2 weeks before finalizing, the spec was changed so that if you have even one ring, you won't die. This now well-known rule was the result of improving the game until the very end, and people world over have enjoyed it as a result. I think that the resulting Balan Wonderworld and the critical reception it received have a lot to do with what happened. I'm really disappointed that the product I worked on from the start turned out this way. I personally regret that Balan Wonderworld was released to the world in an unfinished state. I wanted to consider all kinds of things and release it as a proper action game. I don't think that Square Enix and Arzest value games and their fans. Damn, this for one is a pretty scathing accusation against Square Enix and Arzest. You've got the director of this game just straight up calling them out. He said they don't value games or game fans, which lately in terms of Square Enix, I can't really say I disagree with him much on. He admits that he felt the game was unfinished. He uses the exact word unfinished several times in this thread. Said he was making attempts to get more time to improve the game. Also mentions that even in terms of the development cycle, the time they even had left when he was taken off the project, that they could have done some significant work in those 6 months. In terms of these accusations against Square Enix, them releasing what was clearly an unfinished product, I totally agree. Regardless of his involvement or his level of involvement, Square Enix still released the game. I said this when it came out and I reviewed it. I don't care what the constraints were, the team size, who was on the team, whatever. At the end of the day, Square Enix allowed this game to go out into the wild, on store shelves, for $60 with their name on it. I can tell you if I was running the company, that wouldn't have happened. I'd rather throw the game in the trash. Cancel. I mean, how much money could they have really made off this game? I don't think it would be worth all the bad press, especially now, because now it's worse. Because these statements make what they did even more egregious, because it appears at least you had the game's director saying, this game isn't finished, it needs more work. And so what did you do? You took him off the project and released it anyway. Honestly, it was truly disgusting, regardless of how true or not true these statements are, that Square Enix put this game out in this state and took people's money for it. But yeah, having big names on the project admitting it was unfinished, so we know that Square knew that it was an unfinished project, yet people sounding the alarm, and they just released it anyway, again for $60. Disgusting. Now, I want to also say this has a lot of people instantly propping Naka up as a victim. He had this dream project taken away from him, that if he just had that extra time, he could have fixed the game. I'm not really in that camp either. Having played the game, the whole game, for my review, you weren't going to save this title in any amount of time. I don't care, 6 months certainly, but I don't even think a year, 2 years would have saved this game. You certainly could have made it less buggy, less glitchy, maybe polish those visuals up a bit. But the game would still suck. The gameplay was awful. Maybe you could even fix the bad movement, platforming in that too, but once more, it wouldn't be a fun game. Every single aspect about this game was uninteresting, uninspired. Unless you were going to be able to just start over from scratch, there was no saving Balan Wonderworld in my opinion. And something else I'd point out, and I'm not trying to discredit the guy, and I firmly believe he voiced these concerns and was written off, but whenever people tell you a story, you only get their side. And you should always look for clues into perhaps what other sides of the story may be. Maybe we'll start to see some of those come out with this game. And something that stood out to me from this statement was when he was setting up why he was taken off the project. I'll read this again. I was removed as the director of Balan Wonderworld for 2 reasons. It was done by the producer, head of marketing, head of sound, managing director, and HR. This kind of makes it sound like there were a lot of people working on this game that weren't very happy working with you. Now again, obviously we weren't there, don't actually know what went down, but there's that saying like, if you have problems with everyone, is everyone else the problem or are you the problem? Like that seems like a lot of people to have problems with you. So I'm still pretty much of the belief that this game was just a total shit show from start to finish. The stuff Naka is saying here once more is certainly damning. Like for him to go in so hard on Square Enix, I'm sure he has reason to. I think the players certainly have reason to. Anybody who bought this game has reason to. And Square Enix is who I put the majority of the blame on, pretty much all the blame, because again, at the end of the day, they decided to put this game out in this state. But I'm also not super fast to jump in here and act like this guy's a victim, or this project would have been something special if him and his team just had a little bit more time. If anything, actually, I think a more polished version of this game would have been even less noticeable. Like, it's something that just would have come and gone with little to no interest or fanfare by players. It's because it was such a disaster that people are so interested in it, and why this new insight is so interesting. Again, if this was just a kind of mediocre come and go title, I wouldn't even probably care enough about it to talk about this. Yet here we are. And I hope we get even more insight into the development of this game because it's so interesting, because it just ended up being such a dumpster fire. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on these new revelations from Yuji Naka on Balan Wonderworld in the comments. How do you feel about Square Enix's actions here? And do you think the game could have been salvaged? As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.